Hello and welcome to Property Mastermind Podcast, episode 95. Today, what to do when your builder goes bankrupt. We thought this was a very topical topic for the week, as there seems to be a lot of noise in the media and things happening out there that this, we know, will be quite useful, and you could be impacted by this if you don't pay close attention. So a handy one today, what to do if your builder goes bankrupt, episode 95. Let's jump on in. Hey, welcome to episode 95. What to do when your builder goes bankrupt. Property Mastermind Podcast with Hilary and Bob Anderson. And welcome to episode 95, Bob.
Thanks, Hilary. Great to be here.
Great to be here. Before we kick off, giving away this book to Nikki Burke. Nikki, the fine winner. You have a fab holiday, so I know you're off on holiday. And if I get it to you on time, you'll be able to read it or take it with you on the big OE. So this is in the post to you, Nikki. Congrats for joining our community as well. Oh, right. So before we kick off, I just have to say, we're in the new office, finally.
Well, mostly in the new office.
Yeah, mostly.
A little bit of fine-tuning to happen.
There is a lot of fine-tuning. That's an understatement, Bob.
I did say a little, but I mean a lot.
Yeah, so apologies for no podcast last week. We had technical issues, as in we were in mid-air. And this week, it's been a bit touchy. Even our morning's been touchy.
Yeah, really busy.
Well, this morning we got trapped in an elevator this morning.
Well, that didn't help. At 5:30 a.m.
5:30 in the morning.
Stuck between the second and the third floor.
Oh, so I had to ring up the man from Otis. And I said to him, well, we were just yarning, as you do. And I said, how many of these calls do you get? Is this a busy job? And he said, you're my fourth in the last hour.
Yeah, Otis do have a lot of lifts. Maybe he's a national troubleshooter, I don't know.
Yeah, he did say he is.
Which it probably isn't a lot. There's probably tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of Otis elevators. Anyway, we could do a podcast on elevators by the sound of it.
Yeah, right, well, maybe. Anyway, so that sort of kicked our day off well. But here's something we are hoping that you don't have to deal with, so we don't want this to kick your day off at any time. What to do when your builder goes bankrupt. And that's if you find yourself in a situation where your builder's gone bankrupt. And we know it can be stressful and challenging.
Probably for both parties.
Yeah, hell yes.
Yeah. So, I mean, we say bankrupt, but before you go bankrupt, it might well go into liquidation. So bankruptcy could be the end result down the track. Hopefully not, but can happen. But yeah. And
right now there's a lot in the media. Like we're hearing of a lot of builders.
Some big builders. Like it's not restricted to small builders. We've, in the last 12, 18 months, 2 years, I guess, we've seen some big companies like ProBuild and they go down, and others. And also, I suppose you could say all the way down to little one-man builders who just operate out of a home office, out of their ute, and anything in between. Size doesn't really have a lot to do with it.
No.
Well, it can. There's a building company that I'm aware of, Plantation Homes, that are owned by a parent company in Asia that's, I think, capitalised at $7 billion. So in that case, they probably would never let them go down.
No.
But, others, it's happening. The funny thing is, as you well know, it's different from a lot of businesses. A lot of businesses get into trouble financially and perhaps even end up in liquidation or bankruptcy when the economy's bad and things aren't going well and they can't sell their products or whatever it is. In the building trade, more builders go broke in the good times, not the bad times. So that's a little bit strange. And people say, how could you go broke in the good times? Well, we'll talk about that. It's when builders are really busy and prices are escalating for both materials and labour. That's a dangerous time for a builder.
That is what's happening at the moment.
Yeah.
Especially people have got contracts and they've quoted for work and then there's been that gap in between and that's why it's just not working. Yeah,
some builders do quote low, operate on small margins, and if you're operating on small margins, you have to operate on volume. But the problem is operating on volume on small margins. If the margins swing, you've got a high volume of delinquent contracts. And
I had a phone call just this week, from somebody saying, "What do I do? Our builder's gone." No, and
missing in action, or
yeah, no. Well, and it's no one that we work with. It's actually it was my hairdresser's auntie who I didn't know, but they didn't know who to go to, and they said, "What do you do?" So we sort of gave them some advice on what their best steps were. Ironically, they roughly saw it coming, and her and I had a conversation 6 weeks ago, and I did say, "You should contact this guy here now," and they didn't. I bet they're kicking themselves, because they probably could have mitigated some of the risk.
Yeah, I mean, the earlier the better, but at the end of the day, you can't control what the builder does.
No, gosh, no.
So if they're sort of sliding out the back door, you might go with them.
Well, there's quite a bit there, and they were saying even that people are going in and ripping everything out of their own properties.
That's
now.
a house, I gather.
Yeah.
It's not like a multi-unit project that we might do. So.
No.
And there's some big building companies that just do houses, as we know, and some have gone. And there will be some more.
There will be.
But it doesn't mean that you don't do anything. I've had 2 builders go broke on me in my pretty much 4 decades of experience, somewhere north of 1.3 billion. So I guess you could say if I've done that volume of work and only had 2 builders go broke, it's probably not too bad.
Yeah.
But it's never a good experience. And, we could talk about, what do you do? I guess that's the name of the podcast. What do you do when your builder, either goes bankrupt or at least goes into liquidation first?
Step 1, I'd go straight to the contract. How about you?
Yeah, you've got to go to the building contract, because that's where all the legalities lie. And it might well be in many cases, the building contract is one of the industry standards, master builders or HIA generally, but it could be one of the Australian standard AS 3000, 4000, whatever it is. But you've got to go to the contract and go to a lawyer, because at the end of the day, you want a lawyer who's a contract expert, and just see what remedies there might be. Because the last time, it sounds like I do it regularly, the last time I had a builder go broke, which was probably about 2015, 2014, something like that, I had an inkling, and my inkling, if you like, came from the quantity surveyor. So it was a commercial contract. Every month the quantity surveyor comes out and does a report.
I'm just going to tilt your mic, Bob. There you go.
Oh, thanks.
There you go. That looks better.
There we go. May you hear me better?
Yeah.
So every month, because it's
for those that aren't
commercial
watching
contract,
us on YouTube, I'm just sorting out the microphone in front of Bob's mouth. You might be able to hear him a bit better.
Yeah.
Sorry, back to the story.
So being a commercial contract, as the financier requires, which in this case was Westpac, the quantity surveyor comes out every month and does a report. And the quantity surveyor said to us when he was out there having a look, he said, "Look, I don't know if you've heard anything, but we're doing a couple of jobs as a quantity surveyor with the same builder you've got, and we're hearing things. We're hearing things from some subcontractors." And that's what often happens.
Hearing things as in they're not being paid, or things that are
So what
dodgy.
often happens with tradies who aren't being paid by a builder, they normally try and contact, if they can find out who it is, and it's not hard, who the financier is,
Right.
or who the quantity surveyor is, and then they go there and they start to
Shake the cage.
Shake the cage. I mean, they it's not just a whinge. It's saying, we're not getting paid. What's going on? Is the developer actually getting funds from the financier? Because what they're worried about is the developer's getting funds and not passing them on to the subcontractors.
What would they be doing with those funds, Bob, if they weren't passing them on and they were in a bad situation?
Well, there's a lot of legislation around that now. It's not as easy as it was in the old days to sort of grab the funds and not pay the subbies. Different states have different regulations where that's not impossible, but it's regulated a lot more to protect the tradies. But ultimately, they can still go. So we got wind of it, that something was happening, and it didn't take long before something happened.
What was that? Yeah, between the wind and the certainty.
4 to 6 weeks.
Okay.
We contacted the builder. They told the usual story. No, it's okay. We're a bit tight on cash flow.
So there you go, and that's probably a point to remember to hear. Bob did contact the builder, and they said, "No, we're all good. Don't worry about anything."
They admitted it was tight, because they must have realised I knew something, but it's never a good thing. And another indication is when a builder, let's say they're getting paid monthly, which on a commercial contract they would, if they start to ask for fortnightly payments, that's a big red flag, because it means they're suffering badly for cash flow.
So, Bob, when you asked and they said that was fine, and then 6 weeks later you found out that it wasn't fine. Did you ask again in between, or would you recommend, or did you wish you had?
No, I wouldn't have changed anything.
No.
I mean, you're just going to get the story they want you to hear at the end of the day.
Oh, they sound like males.
Oh, was it male builder as it turned out, coincidentally. So in that particular case, we had to move fairly quickly.
Yeah.
To do something to, and she say, I mean, we already, when you say go to the contract, I mean, it's a contract we've used 100 times, we understand the contract, we have special conditions in the contract, but there's nothing you can do if a builder goes in your special conditions as such, because if they run out of cash, they run out of cash. But in that case, we did go to the contract. We were holding money on the builder, as you often do in a commercial contract, not so much like for a house, like a small residential contract, but we were holding a retention. Mm-hmm. So in a commercial building contract, you hold 5, sometimes even 10% back on the builder on every payment, and then they sort of get it at the end to keep it simple. So we immediately closed that. Their liquidator pretty quickly tried to get the retention, because the retention was, if you like, money that we'd held. They were about a third of the way through the project, so we'd paid them for about a third, but we were holding back 5% of that third as a retention under the contract, perfectly allowed to do that. So their liquidator tried to get that, and we just sort of smashed their liquidator and said no. Basically,
he just asked for it. He said, "I'd like that money released."
Well, they asked for it in case we're stupid enough to hand it over. They said, "Oh, it's the builder's money. It's money you've held from the builder."
There's tip number 2 here. What Bob did, even though somebody came with some sort of potential.
Their lawyer, it was the lawyer representing the liquidator.
Yeah.
But we have our own lawyers.
And they just said no.
We just said, well, no, look, we're going to suffer damages over this, and so we're sitting on that. And if we ever come out of it, and our damages are less than that, then we'll consider paying you. But otherwise, go jump. And we never heard from them again, because they knew they couldn't get hold of it.
Good tip, Bob.
So, yeah, and because one of the other things you got to do is lock down. So extricate yourself from that contract. You can't run out and sign another contract. You can't have 2 contracts concurrently on the same job. But you want to get another builder installed with it. There's a process in doing that and time. And so you need to secure the site. So there would be a fence, obviously, around the site by law. But, I mean, you want to change locks and everything, because what will happen, and it can happen quite quickly, tradies that are owed money,
they'll go and take
they'll go straight in there and
grab
whatever they can.
That's what my hairdresser was saying was happening down where...
Yeah, and we actually let the tradies in.
Yeah.
Like, say, the plumber drainer's not being paid, but he might have $20,000 worth of plumbing drainage pipes and connections and valves and everything on site. It's no good to us.
No.
And so he said, okay, you can have that. You're not taking anything else other than the plumbing and draining stuff. You're not taking electricians, cabling and everything else. And so in an orderly way, we just sort of left the gate open.
Let them take their stock that was sitting there.
Yeah. Only, like, I can't tell you what the legal position is, but I felt sorry for those guys. And as long as they only recovered their own equipment, I didn't care.
So what was interesting, Bob, when we talked about go to the contract, and then you said go to your lawyer, and those are the 2 things that almost go hand in hand. Yeah. So
I mean, we know our contracts because we've done hundreds of them,
and we know your lawyer.
And we know our lawyer
because he's been your lawyer for 40 years.
Yeah. Well, one of them.
And he's a contract
lawyer. We've got about
lawyer.
5 lawyers, but
that one. Yeah,
that one. And you got to legally get that contract rescinded, so that you're at least in a position to enter into a new one. Lock the site down. Let your financier know. Now that's not a joyful sort of conversation.
How do you have that? What's
on the phone first up?
What's their beef with that, Bob? How do they respond to it?
Well, look, no financier wants a builder to go broke.
No.
Because it just complicates matters. No developer wants a builder to go broke, and no builders, I assume, want to go broke. So, but it happens. And so with the financier, for instance, I've had it happen twice. Once was with a bank, which was Westpac, and the other time was with a non-bank. And I went to the non-bank because it was quite a complex structure. It was basically what we call a stock-back deal, and there was also investors' funds from a capital raising, so it was a bit complex. Banks can't deal with that stuff, so I financed it through a non-bank.
They can't get their head around that sort of information.
And they're castrated by their own rules, you know. It's got to be pretty simple. So the first thing I did is obviously contacted my lawyer. I was aware of the contract. We secured the site. We put security on the site.
Oh, okay.
To
Another smart
stop
move.
breakages,
Great
break-ins.
tips in this podcast, Bob. Yep.
Then I phoned my financier, the non-bank, in one case, and said, look, we've got a problem with the builder. Looks like he's going out the back door. We do have a plan. We want to come down and talk to you. They happened to be about an hour from where we were, so made a time.
And they like that, Bob. They like the fact that you said, I do have a plan and I need to come and talk to you.
You can't put your head in the ground, in the sand, you know.
You can't put your head in the sand about anything.
Financiers, that would not be the first builder who's ever gone broke for that financier.
Yeah.
You know, because they finance a lot of developments. They've probably had 2, 4, 6, 8, 10 builders go broke. I've got no idea. So it's not, but what they do want is for you to stand up and take responsibility, come up with a plan, execute the plan. And so went and saw the financier the next day. I said, look.
What was your plan, Bob?
Looks like he's gone into liquidation. I said, so we've secured the site. I've got security patrolling, examined the contract, got my lawyer involved. We're in the process of cancelling the contract so we can enter into a new contract, and gave some time frames around that.
How long does that generally take, Bob?
Look, it can take 10 to 12 weeks easy. You know, and we can talk about, you know, getting another builder in.
Yeah.
But part of the plan was to do that. I said, I've already phoned the quantity surveyor because I knew what has to be done. And I said, the quantity surveyor's coming in on Friday. They're going to do a cost to complete. In other words, they'll work out exactly how many dollars are left to complete the project. That's not necessarily the dollars that remain unpaid on the contract. It's a slightly different thing that the financier needs to know. And so I had a plan and I stuck timeframes around it. And the financier said, oh, absolutely brilliant. Thanks for letting me know immediately. He said, not everybody does, and we don't like finding out secondhand. We don't like finding out 2 weeks later. Some people try and, you know, fix things up in a hurry and then go and tell the financier, it's not what you do. And that financier, I've used since then, and that relationship was actually made even more solid.
Yeah, by you being straight up about it.
That's the sign of any person. It's, you know, we can all behave nicely and easily and well when things are easy. It's when things are tough in life as well, not just building. It's how you deal with the tough stuff. And that was the tough stuff, and I like the way we dealt with it. Dealt with it, I should say.
Yeah, so dealt with it.
Dealt with it.
Where's your England coming from, Bob?
Yeah, and so that's what we did, and it was very important that we stuck to those time frames, and it was very important that we kept up a regular reporting, and that was fine.
Bob, is there insurance that would come into play?
Not on a project like that. Look,
No?
every state has its own builder's insurance, if you like, just want to call it a better name, for when a builder goes broke. But they generally relate to very small projects, some up to 3 things, but some up to a certain dollar value of contract. It's different in every state because contract law is a state-by-state thing. Some of them have also capped how much they'll pay, and so unless it's like something like small, like a house or a duplex, then you probably there's not much you can do, and there's probably a limit on the amount of money. And generally, those organisations they love taking premiums off builders. But they're pretty much a dog without teeth.
I love that saying. Hey, you brought up something before and I didn't unpack it. You mentioned the cost to complete being different to what's left on the project. I kind of get what you mean there, but I think you need to elaborate on that for people listening.
Yeah, financiers, when they lend on a commercial loan on construction, work on what they call a cost to complete basis. So you got the contract price, and that might be chopped up. I mean, ultimately, they get paid monthly, so by the time they finish, they've been paid everything. And the quantity surveyor, every time they do a report, they work out, okay, we've paid them this much, there's that much left. And it can be a little bit different, and sometimes there could be other things that go into it, like variations. On the second job, we found out something on the cost to complete. This is the one that was financed through
I know this one.
Actually, no, it's not the one that was financed through Westpac. It's the one that was financed through the non-bank. When the quantity surveyor went out there, and this was a mistake the quantity surveyor made, and it was brought to light, that it was a large project. It was 21 townhouses, and they're done in blocks of townhouses, sort of blocks of 5 or thereabouts. The quantity surveyor had paid for the footings.
For all of them?
For this block, and there's a lot of loose dirt and gravel, and the builder had said, "Oh, we've had to move this dirt back over the footings," and when we'd install the new builder and move the dirt, there was no footings under it.
So the quantity surveyor didn't check that the work.
Well, he didn't take his shovel with him and move, 100 cubic metres of soil. But
lazy man.
But I mean, if you can't see it, don't pay it, I suppose.
Good point.
That's just one of those funny things that happened.
So many good points.
But the other one, I might just mention, the other one was through Westpac, and I did the same thing. So we go straight away, tell them, problem. Here's our plan. Ironically, the builder that went broke on that job, one of his references was the head of property at Westpac, who I also know quite well, and he was a reference. And so Westpac had said, "Oh, I'm glad you're using that builder. He's a client of ours. We've supported them for years."
No.
And I said, "Oh, well, that's good to hear. Thanks very much." And so when I rang them, I said, "Your client, the one you recommended, has just gone broke, and he's created a problem for you." It's a problem for us too, but I wanted to put it back on him. And I said, "Oh God, okay."
Bit of the blame game going on.
Yeah. So, but what?
How did they respond when you said that?
Oh, look, it's not the first builder that's gone broke on a Westpac loan. Don't worry. So they were okay because they had a plan.
Yes.
I mean, I am experienced as well, so they know I've been around a while, know my way around. And
38 years later. Oh, that would have been 30 years later.
32 years later, or whatever it was. But I did have a plan, and I approached them immediately, and they respect that. Because no financier wants to get stuck with a half-finished project. They want to finish it. That's how they get their money back, by finishing it. The only issue is that getting the next builder.
Yes, that's something I thought I would like to... Well, before we jump to that, there's something else I want to just unpack a little bit, is at what point do you let say you've got investors or stakeholders, at what point should they become involved? When you've got a plan with the bank, or immediately? How should that be, Bob?
Oh, we're pretty open book. Yeah. We told them straight away, look...
But what would you recommend for people
You rarely
listening?
get into trouble telling the truth.
No,
but boy, geez, if you dodge and weave and put up smoke screens, that's where you get into trouble. And so the one through the non-bank, the 21 townhouses, that was just one we did ourselves with our business partner Ben at the time. But the other one, the one through Westpac, which was a 5-storey apartment block, that did have investors. Mm-hmm. And so we told the investors straight away. We called a meeting, did a Zoom, said, "Look, got an issue. We'll solve it." It looked like the builder's gone out the back door. And same thing, we gave them the plan of what's going on. We said we'll keep you regularly reported. No need to panic. And we proceeded on that basis.
How would that? How much better is it to have be notified, be told what's happening, and just the relief of hearing the truth and know that there's a plan? And I have to just jump in with, we hear too often of people who are not hearing back from people they've borrowed money from, loaned money to, and things potentially aren't going well, and there's no communication. They try calling, and the other person has their head in the sand. So that's a really great point, and I know we've mentioned it in another podcast, but it's really important that you keep your investors in the loop.
We knew that the profit would be hammered a bit because of what had to go on. You've got to change builders. The next builder's going to be more expensive. You've got a period of interest when you're just doing nothing. And so what we did, we were in for quite a substantial project management fee at that point. We were only about 30% through the construction. So what we also said to them is, look, we're going to complete the project for free. The extra 70% of project management fees were waived. And it was a lot more work because of this than it would have been if the builder hadn't gone broke. But we basically absorbed all that.
Nice.
To make sure the investors got through okay. And they got through okay. The profit they made was negligible, but they got all their capital back. So our main position was to preserve the investors' capital, even if we made nothing out of it ourselves, And so that's the way we went with that. And they respected that.
Well, wouldn't anybody listening?
And when we finished, a number of those investors...
That's why we pay you the big bucks, Paul.
A number of those investors at the end said, we're definitely going to reinvest with you on other projects. We realised that, one in every so often a builder goes broken, you can't control that, but the way you handled it, we're happy to reinvest any time with you,
So just you went on to building and finding another builder, and I know that this can be quite difficult for numerous reasons. So replacing your builder, let's talk about why it's a problem, or why other builders aren't necessarily keen to jump in on that. And I do know why, but we'll let you discuss.
Oh, you're welcome to take over.
Oh, well.
But so once you're rid of the first builder, you got your financier on track, any investors are aware, you need to get another builder. Now, the issue with getting another builder, there's a few here, is even if the cost of construction hadn't gone up at all since you signed the first contract, the second builder, think of it this way, you may have chosen the cheapest builder up front. There's nothing right or wrong with that. It's not always the best thing to do, but it can be. If they're a really good builder, they come recommended and they happen to be the cheapest, then that's fine. But even the next builder was more. So you've got to expect that it's quite possible that the next builder will automatically be higher build cost. But the other thing is that by law, they have to take over the works of the previous builder.
Guaranteeing.
They can't just start at 30% into a project and just pick it up from there in terms of their insurances and what their warranties are. They've got to wind it right back. So they have to pay full insurance, but they're taking over. Let's say, in the case I talked about, 30% is already complete. And so they need to have a look at the quality of that work, because what can happen is when a builder is going broke, they know they're slowly going broke, they'll cut corners. Oh. And so that other builder has to find where the corners have been cut, and that stuff might need rectification. And so first of all, they'll add a component
like
into
footings
that price.
That don't exist.
Even that, well, yeah. Even things like that. So they have to add extra onto their contract price to cover that, and some unforeseens that could arise. Plus, they're unlikely they're going to be as cheap as the previous builder anyway, so it's going to be a higher price.
Could there be a clause in there, Bob, as in unforeseens? Like if they come across things that could be open discussion about how you move forward through those? Could that be something
that'll be in their contract?
Yes. As well. Yeah.
Yeah, because they've got to cover themselves for that.
Butt cover.
Yep, and fair enough. I would too if I was the builder.
It reminds me of, if you had my sister actually once in her family decided to get a dog, and they got it, a puppy, and they never trained it, and then they decided it was too hard having a dog, so they just took it back to the dog place or the pound or whatever, and somebody else had to get it.
An untrained dog.
Yeah, so it's kind of the same thing. You're getting something that comes with no warranty and could have all sorts of issues.
Yeah. Like trying to train an untrained dog rather than start from scratch. Yeah. A bit like that.
That's my analogy.
That's a good analogy. I love your analogies you come up with. I was wondering where this dog thing's going, but I worked it out eventually.
There's people listening now were way onto that ages ago.
So you can see there, it's going to be a higher price in any event, and they've got to cover all these things. And then the whole builder's insurance, you'd already paid for it with the first builder, now you've got to pay for it with the second builder, because he has to take out all his insurances, and you don't get and part of the previous building contract was the insurances with the first builder. So there's like double insurances.
You don't get refunded that back?
No, you get nothing back, no. Oh. And so you got these extra costs, And now, if you like, what could be even worse than that is if the construction prices have gone up in the meantime. So that's what happened with the 5-storey building with Westpac, is that the cost of building had gone up quite a bit since we first, if you like, got the contract price between then and the builder going out the back door. So that added to the price. Also the fact that the builder has to add in extras for the work done to date, because he's got to cover that. And look, some builders just will not do that sort of job. I approached, on that particular project, I approached 12 builders.
Oh, so some builders just don't want to take on somebody else's work.
No. And
too hard. Yeah.
Too hard.
Just bad puppy. It's going to wee on the carpet.
Yeah. Yep. And the ones that do are going to load it up. There's another puppy thing. So out of the 12 that I approached, only 3 quoted.
Wow.
And so I chose from those 3. And it was a big, substantial builder, I've got to say. A very big builder that I picked on the next one. And they weren't going to go broke because they're highly capitalised. And so...
Do you know what?
Yeah.
It brings me to, if we go back to earlier and you said there were those red flags, and I was affected. I was going to say infected, but I was affected by that. And my builder actually came to me and said, due to the crazy build increases, I'm just not going to be able to wear the difference. And would you, can I renegotiate the price? And it wasn't a huge amount, but I ended up paying more. I just said yes, because to me that was a win-win situation. He communicated with me.
He wore some of the pain too.
Yep, he wore some of the pain, and I just thought, I trust him so much. He's such a lovely guy. And when he asked, I said, Bob, I actually turned around and said, Bob, would you do that? And he said, yeah. And I was like, okay then, yeah.
Well, I've seen people really
dig their heels in
and screw the builder to the point the builder's gone, but then everything goes.
Yeah.
Not only does the builder
then you've
go,
got to deal with all of that stuff.
Yeah, and it
that
ends
we
up
just talked
costing
about.
them way more
Yeah.
in both time and interest, and someone's got to finish the job then, because it's worse.
He was telling us the other day that, was it Gyprock, gone up 30%?
Cost of raw Gyprock, yeah.
30%.
They're still getting smashed over there in WA.
It's
more
WA,
so.
yes.
Yeah. But anyway, that kept the job on.
Yeah, so that, little things like that, it pays to just, those hard rules don't work. And like you said, if you do something that you can fix something earlier, then that just alleviates all the other pain of having to review the contract, get a lawyer, organise, make a new plan. All that stuff does not have to happen.
Yeah. At least you didn't have the added complication of a financier, because that project's been financed purely off cash. So
you make me sound rich.
Wow. Don't you? Why do you think I chased you so hard?
Hang on, this is live on a podcast.
Oh, sorry. You can cut that.
It's a true story.
Cut that out if you like.
No, they can leave it in.
So, that's a different example there, where you've worked with the builder and obviously gone through. So, and getting that other builder in place. So you think now your cost to complete's gone up.
Yeah.
This builder's going to be more expensive, and what that does, it chews into your profit margin. So you've always had this profit in there. Let's say it was 20% of costs, whatever it is. Like on $900,000 townhouses, that profit is $150,000 a townhouse, typically on a 20% margin. So if it was a 4-pack, you've got $600,000 profit in there. So these extra expenses, the now higher negotiated build contract, the fact that you might spin tyres for 4 months before the new builder can get installed.
And the cost of money.
You got some legal expenses.
Yep.
You got some holding costs. You got all these things. That's going to chew into that 600,000.
Yep.
And look, if you come out with 300 and it cost you 300,
happy days.
You still made 300.
Yeah. No one went broke.
Had to work harder for it.
No one went broke making money. That's your favourite saying.
Yeah. Or whatever it comes out at.
Yeah.
Like that'll depend on not only those things, but of course, has build costs gone up in the meantime or not? Yeah. Maybe you're lucky. Maybe build costs have come down during that time, and you might get out of it for evens.
Oh.
Build costs do go down sometimes. They don't always go up.
Just on another note, Bob, and that we haven't flipped to the other side of what to do when your builder goes broke. What about the emotional toll, the stress on your body, the stress on you? You're dealing with the impact of that stress is huge, wouldn't it? I can imagine.
Oh, it depends, yeah. It depends how you deal with stress, yeah. I mean,
But
for some people it might be. Yeah. Oh, I mean, there's stress there. I'm not saying there's not stress there. But a lot of it comes from having a plan.
Yeah.
Like if you have a plan, then you can see your way out. I mean, the first time you hear, the builder's gone broke, oh, God, your heart jumps to like 200 RPM and, geez, But when you actually sit down and think, okay.
You've simplified it. I think what you've said has been great. 1, read your contract. 2, go to your lawyer. 3, create a plan. Secure the site. Get security. Go to your financier. And
organise the cost to complete through a QS.
Yeah. Find your new builder.
That's your plan. So you've got to work your way through that, okay? So it's a step by step. But it's like everything. When it first happens, you just see this big black cloud and it's like it's consuming. But you think, well, wait a minute, I'm hardly the first person to ever have a builder go broke. How did the others get through, And then that's where the plan comes. So as you see, okay, I've got a plan. I can see how that came out. I know it's going to punch a hole in my profit, but that's okay, because I also know that some projects where I do my feasibility, when I buy the site and the market goes up, I actually make more. So that's okay. This is one of those times where I'm going to make less.
Swings and roundabouts.
So And just knowing there's a plan and then getting your financier on side. So now you think, oh, okay, I've got a plan. I can see how I can work through this. It's probably going to be 3 or 4 months of hard work. But my financier is on side, and I'm going to do it. And then that helps the stress level. You've still got the work. You've got to work your way through it. There's going to be, frustrations and wheel spinning. You might have to talk to a number of builders to get one, and to get some to quote, and then of those to choose the right builder. But look, it's like anything. When something first happens, you think, oh, geez, and
knee jerk.
Yeah, but then you've got to logically go through it.
The steps.
Once everybody's on side, once if you've got investors, they're aware what's going on, and you're just going to keep reporting to them. You've got a plan. Like, that's how they deal with that, but it doesn't matter because that's there's all documentation that deals with that. Same thing with the builder, the contract, you just work your way through it. And yeah, there's an element of stress there, but it's like everything. If you can see how you're going to get to the light at the other end, then you just do it, and you just target it, focus on it, and do all the steps you got to do to get there.
Well, Bob, I think that you've given some great tips today. I said great tip 2 or 3 times, so I found that very interesting. Even though I kind of knew it, hearing you talk about it in a step-by-step process was really useful. So I'm sure people listening will find that useful, and just good to know, some of that good information to know. So
can I just tell you something? It's funny now because it's over, but about 8 years ago, my good mate Ben Smith, he was a business partner for a period of time. He built a house for himself, and he had 2 builders go broke on a house. No. First builder went broke. The second builder took it over and went broke, and the third builder finished it, and that was just a house.
Oh, my gosh.
Anyway.
The importance of...
We're talking about builders going broke, but if you think of the number of builders who keep building and don't go broke, it's a very small percentage. So it's not something that you should be fearful of.
It's like the number of elevators in Australia. Yeah. He'd had 4 calls this morning about elevators that are broken down. There are a lot of elevators. There's
120,000 Otis elevators. I made that up, but you know what I mean.
I'm sure there's more than that. And it's probably not just all Otis ones either.
A lot of people die from car accidents, but it shouldn't stop you from driving a car.
No. Anyway, thanks, Bob. Great info. I really enjoyed episode 95 and look forward to, Nikki, your book's in the post, but we will see everybody. Hey, yes, next Saturday.
22nd of April.
22nd of April is our free masterclass. Goes from 9 till 1. We would love for you to attend.
It's launched many a developer.
It has launched some I think we could go Connie Palella, Kaz Povey, who else is... the Kipus, Adelaide. These are all
too
people
many to mention.
Currently developing now and making money. So if you want to get
good money.
If you want to get in on that, attend our masterclass. There'll be a link below. And we will see you there. You'll have to be quick because this will come out Thursday and it'll be on Saturday 9 till 1 wherever you are.
Yep.
Other than that, we will catch you next week for episode 96. Catch you next time.
Bye.
Bye.